Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Down to the Wire podcast. It's just going to be a weekly podcast that we're going to be doing, discussing everything that's worth knowing in sport that's happened in the past week. I'm Jack, and I'm joined by...
Jack!
So you'll never forget our names, which is helpful. So what is this podcast about? Like I said, it's going to be a general podcast where we're going to be talking about all things sports. Isn't that right, Jack?
That is right. Everything and anything sport.
Everything and anything sport. That's what we like to hear. Should we get started?
Let's get started.
Okay. So we'll just do a bit of a general discussion. Actually, before we do that, some of the sports that we have a particular interest in. Jack, do you want to kick us off with that?
Most people in Britain, I'm a big fan of football, but I also got a keen interest in cycling and American football. Those are kind of my main three. Right.
Fair enough. So for me, it's probably football, obviously, like you said, as is a lot of people in the UK. Kind of followed the NFL, not been following it a massively long time. Formula 1, big fan of.
Right.
And I am a big fan of the rugby as well, being a Welshman. But yeah, we say, these are the sports that we're particularly interested in. That's not to say we won't discuss other sports.
I like rugby in the February season when the Six Nations is on.
Yeah,
that's about
Six
it,
Nations. Yeah. No, that's fair enough. And like I said, I'm not particularly clued up on NFL, so it'll be a good learning experience for all of us. Right, so we'll kick off with what's been happening in sports the past week, shall we? So, any shocks we want to be talking about?
Oh, shocks. Biggest one is probably NFL related for me.
Okay.
Buccaneers played the Saints Monday night. Oh, not Monday night. Monday morning, but that's Sunday night for them. And they got held out to a 38-3 loss, I think. That's the biggest loss of Tom Brady's career. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's
I
my
didn't know that.
shock, yeah.
My shock would probably be Australia versus New Zealand rugby. So last week they played in the makeshift Tri-Nations, we'll call it, because South Africa aren't participating. They went from probably one of their heaviest defeats ever last week to actually beating the All Blacks this week, which I thought was real upset for the Bucks. So we're in the first podcast, and I've already jumped down the script to where I shouldn't be jumping, so this is a really solid start. But anyway, so that's going to be a regular segment of the
that did catch me out. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, there we are. We'll keep each other on our toes. So that's going to be a regular feature, kind of shocks of the past week that we're going to be discussing. Apologies, Jack. Wasn't my intention.
No, it's good. Keep us on our feet, yeah.
Keep us on our feet. Right, there we are. Right, so I'll try and stick to the script now. So football's what we're doing next, right?
Yeah.
Good, right. So, big matchup for the weekend, Liverpool City. Did you watch the game?
I did watch the game, watch most of it.
What were your thoughts?
It was a right game. Bit tedious. No, you know what? Electric start in terms of both teams having a good attack. But did die off a little bit.
Yeah, they after about an hour, they sort of started to... they just looked very tired, didn't they? And it looked like after an hour, they both kind of... It was almost like they looked each other in the eyes and were like, do you want a draw? Yeah, we'll take a draw.
See them that, though, a few times this season. They did it against Leeds. It was in Leeds. I don't know if they actually scored at the beginning of the game, but they came out and you'd just assumed they were going to win 4 or 5-0. And then they just seemed to shut off after about 20 minutes, and then Leeds pretty much dominated the next 70. Yeah,
I mean... right, full disclosure, I'm a Liverpool fan, so we'll just put that out there before people say, embarrassed or whatever. Yeah. Just to clarify things, who do you support in football?
I am a Man United fan, but also a partial Nottingham Forest fan.
Okay. Well, it's unfortunate about the United bit, but anyway, we'll carry on. I'll be honest with you, I think a draw suits Liverpool more than City. Given their current position in the table.
It's probably... to be honest, though, neither of them are looking good.
I agree. I guess the thing is, for Liverpool as well, as in we've had quite a few injuries not too long into the season, so as in... I don't want to speak for all Liverpool fans, but as in if you'd said to me before that game 1-1 draw, I probably would have taken it.
That's fair enough. I think both would have. I think nobody wants to lose pace, and that's the important thing.
Yeah, and I think they said in commentary, didn't they? They said something along the lines of, it's a game. Oh, what did they say now? Come on, Jack. They said it's a game that you'd rather. Oh, I can't remember exactly what they said, but it was something to the effect of, it's a game. That was it. It's a bad game to lose.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I'd probably agree with that. Little bit of controversy with the handball. Yeah.
Joe Gomez.
What were your thoughts?
It was a tough one because, in a sense, I'll be honest, I thought it was a pen, but that's because the way I'm looking at that is, if it hits the hand, even though it's in the motion, if I was the other team, I'd be annoyed if that hit someone's hand as a pretty decent cross. You know, there could have been a goal. But also, because it was the second one of the day, because Wolves played Leicester earlier in the day, that Maximilian Kilman, he got a handball against him in the exact same fashion, pretty much the exact same area of the pitch. He's running across, someone crosses the ball in, his arm's in a running motion, it's pretty low, it's probably not off of his body much, but it hits him on the hand, and it's far, I'd say it is far enough off the body that you could give that as a foul.
Okay, yeah, so you'd say that it's
under
not a natural position, then.
under today's rules of what refs are doing, I'd probably say, yeah, that was a pen, but
okay.
I probably would anyway, but it's particularly under like what they're doing at the moment, where they're pretty much, if it hits your hand, I'd say that was about as good as you can get.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it opens a wider discussion for, as in we had some other sort of controversial VAR decisions throughout the weekend, didn't we? As in we saw with Patrick Bamford, for anyone who didn't see. Basically, he's striker for Leeds. Yeah, for anyone who didn't see, it was a bit of a stinker of a decision, but basically he pointed to where he wanted the ball played as the striker. He was behind as in he was the correct side of the defender at this point. He pointed to where he wanted the ball played, and basically where it was kind of like the end of his arm to his hand, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That was
like the
offside.
The rule they've where they sort of say in the parts of your body which can be called offside, they don't say your hands and your forearm, but they basically, where the kit line cuts off for like a t-shirt, that is where they call it as that's part of the playable body or whatever.
Okay.
So when he's pointing, they've done that VAR line and they've gone right onto the smidge of where the t-shirt would have ended, because he was wearing a thermal, so it didn't literally show it, but on his t-shirt, they've just gone, yeah, probably was. That was gross. It was. That's nowhere near a pen.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is, it's just. Like, realistically, why are they calling that offside? Is in the rest, like all of his body, apart from like the middle of his forearm to his hand, like all the rest of him is onside. And okay, if you're going by the technicalities, yes, he may be offside, but it's not like he's going to play with his hand here, is it?
No, and if anything, it takes away goals. Like Graham Souness was saying on commentary earlier in the season, he was saying, these handball penalties are great for the football in general because it creates more goals and that's what fans want to watch. But by the same logic, if you're taking away goals for handballs, offsides rather, for parts of the body which aren't playable, or offsides that are ridiculously marginal that no one's really getting on board with, it's like, well, why don't you just negate both and say we're not going to call the offsides for them, but we're also not going to do the handballs in the box for them, and then it's like everyone's happy because no one's getting aggrieved and no one's getting fortune out of anything.
Yeah. No, I agree. So I guess we'll discuss it a bit more then. So VAR in general, what are your thoughts on VAR in football?
I mean, if anything, it's an indictment that when you consider other technology that got introduced, like goal line technology, no one complained until maybe last season when was it? I can't remember if it was Villa. I think Sheffield United went for a free kick or something from about 40 yards out, and it pretty much went over everybody, and it went across the line, and it should have been a goal, and it wasn't. That was the only time that goal line technology hasn't worked, and people go, "Whoa, we're questioning technology here." But when you look at VAR and you go, you know what, that is an absolute, abhorrent way of using it, because they're just taking out perfectly good goals and giving people opportunities to score goals, which probably, were never going to be awarded in the first place. I mean, other sports have introduced consider the NFL, like they have all sorts of rules, but they've always had video technology. They've always included it, but it's a lot easier because it's play-by-play rather than just a fluid game like football. So you have a stoppage between each play, which you can go, we'll have a look at that or whatever. You know, you can even challenge plays, which is, I think, so in the Prem maybe should introduce. But when they introduced something where they said, okay, we'll have a pass interference rule, and if something is, you know, adjudicated to have not been called or should have been called, teams can challenge the play, and you know they can reverse it if they deem they want to. But that was a case where the referees were getting it wrong, and they never changed the plays afterwards retrospectively because they didn't want to make them look bad, and they just took out the ability to challenge the plays after. I don't know if that was the right thing to do, but when you look at football then, and you say, okay, you've got VAR and all that, and you know they look at it and all that, it's like, well, if the referees can't make any of these decisions right, then just take away the opportunity to get it wrong in the first place and don't even give them VAR. It's a bit pointless, really.
Yeah. I mean, my thoughts on VAR is, in, you know, like you see on, you know, when fans are aggrieved at a decision, they always say, oh, get rid of VAR, it's ruining the game. I mean, look, for me, the thing with VAR is, like, I've seen a lot of people complain about the length of time that it's taken for VAR decisions to be made. And I think there is an argument for that. But I would argue that if the balance is between getting the right decision and spending a bit of extra time, I'm happy for them to take a bit longer.
Yeah.
And I've also seen a lot of people say, oh, you know, get rid of VAR, it's destroying the game. I'm kind of like, I don't think the video aspect of VAR is a bad thing. I just don't think they're using it properly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as in, I think football is one of those games, like, you know, you said, NFL is kind of play-by-play, isn't it?
Yeah.
Football's more fluid. And then I think, as a result of that, you have got to consider context in certain situations.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, I think managers have complained, players have complained, fans have complained, that, you know, that they're following like the rules to the letter, aren't they? Rather than kind of considering, you know, like, oh, like for example, you could argue. I know you said you think it was a penalty, but as in many people could argue, well, his arm may have been in a natural, in inverted commas, a natural position. You know, where are you expecting him to like amputate his arm in order for it to not be a handball?
Yeah.
And I think I'm just looking at the notes we've written here, like you've said about a penalty from the Wolves last game. You know, as in another one where
it's pretty much identical to the Gomez one.
Yeah,
like really
natural
freakish
position.
Yeah.
And it you know, there just doesn't seem to be any consideration of you know, context, and I think that's one thing. But I mean, I don't know about you. When it comes to these refereeing decisions, you know, like I quite often say this with rugby, because I think with rugby there's interpretation of certain aspects of the game can very much impact how the game flows.
Mm-hmm.
And I find myself quite often saying when I'm watching rugby that I say, if the referee is going to referee it like that, as long as he does it for both teams, I don't mind. Do you think there's an element of that with VAR in football? What are your thoughts on that?
Not sure.
No?
So you're on about the referees? You think they've got to get it right?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is there an element of which, okay, so on the face of it, you know, like the Joe Gomez one could be seen as harsh.
Yeah.
The handball that was given in the Leicester game could be seen as harsh.
Yeah.
But is there an element of, it doesn't matter whether it's harsh as long as the referees are consistent across the board?
Yeah, consistency is key. I think nobody wants... If everyone's going to get done over, then everyone should get done over. It's not certain teams should benefit, certain teams shouldn't. I mean, I was talking to someone on Facebook, and they were talking about Wolves last season. They were saying, they don't get very many VAR decisions going for them. I think they had like a for and against for how many, you know, you gained or lost out on.
Yeah.
I think they were on like -6 decisions, like, you know, 6 went against them for the year. You know, they were the most unlucky team. But I do think a lot of the decisions benefit teams who are more attacking because you put yourself in a position to benefit from those situations more often than not.
Of course, yeah.
So, yeah, consistency is key. But I guess in the same way, sometimes you've got to forge your own luck. You've got to be the team that's going out there forcing that sort of situation to happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually, because I think we had... perhaps we're going,
off beam, but it
but
is what it is. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure we've discussed before, haven't we? How sometimes play I remember before there was a whole thing about Jamie Vardy where, he would angle his runs in a way where he'd kind of almost cross the defender and for want of a better term, create contact.
But to be fair, I think that's a play start. You're putting yourself in a position to get it, and you're forging your own.
That's what I mean.
Like, you've got to be savvy. You've got to know the rules to manipulate the rules. You know what I mean? It's like with any sport. It happens a lot in the NFL where I think it was a fortnight ago that the Titans were playing the Texans. A tight game. It was about 31-all, and there was, I think there was about a minute left on the clock, and the Texans had the ball. And Mike Vrabel, Titans coach, purposely put 12 men on the field when you're only allowed 11 men on the field for one play. And after the play, the referees spotted it, 12 men on the field. Texans gained 5 yards of field, so that's good for them. But critically, it stopped the clock instead of having a running clock. So he knew the rule. He knew if there were 12 men on the field, okay, he's going to lose 5 yards of field, but he stops the clock. So it means when the Titans get the ball back, which they needed every second of, they had an opportunity to score a game equalising then touchdown. So you've got to know the rules, like Jamie Vardy did. He knows if you cut across a man, even if he doesn't know you're there, if they make contact with you in the box and you go down, referees 9 times out of 10 are given the pen nowadays, especially with VAR. I mean, I thought the same for was it Mane? I think it was Mane went down in the Liverpool game. Was that when Carl Walker? Yeah. I thought, you know what? They've only nudged thighs. They haven't touched anything else other than thighs. And I thought to myself, that was soft. I mean, the commentators thought it was a pen, and I'm sure you probably thought it was a pen. But I looked at it and I thought that it is a foul. When you look at it, because he's cut across him. But to be honest, it was slow mo. So you were looking at it and you thought, okay, maybe it's not. But it always looks worse in slow mo. But he did cut across him, but he only touched thighs. And I thought, gosh, that's soft. So if you're giving it for that, you've got to give Jamie Vardy's one. And different teams, different players know how to play that book better than others. I mean, we've spoken before about Salah. He goes down at the touch of a feather, but you feel contact, you go down.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it's all about, from the player's perspective, it's being savvy, isn't it? I think, because it was the...
No, the rules manipulate them.
It was the West Ham Liverpool game, wasn't it? And I think Salah kind of I can't remember who was it. Masuaku?
Masuaku came from behind.
Yeah,
he sort of touched the underside of his foot.
It was clumsy, wasn't it?
It was
clumsy.
In real time, it does look like he takes a whack. When you look slow mo, obviously everything looks sometimes better, sometimes worse. Slow mo, but it just looked like he tapped him on the underside of the foot, and Salah's taking a gunshot wound or something. But it was one of those cases where you go. Salah did it just I think in midweek as well against Midtjylland. So certain players, maybe they get a reputation for it by the end. I mean, I think Ronaldo had it for a bit when he was in the Prem, and I think Zaha is sort of getting that because I think it was either him or Grealish is the most fouled player in the league, but the other one's definitely second. But now refs are starting to not give fouls to him. I mean, I don't know how much of that is him diving and how much is the fact that other teams are like triple man marking him and kicking him. I
think a lot of the time that teams think if you stop Zaha, you kind of stop Palace a little bit.
Yeah, and it's probably been shown this season because they are a dominant force and he's proper balling.
Okay, well, I think that's... I mean... if you are watching on YouTube, I don't know who's going to be watching at this point. It's the first episode. But let us know. Perhaps put in the comments what you think about VAR.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see because I think it's such a divisive topic, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, actually, going on it, I know this is going to be way off script because I haven't even told you about this. But we have had a discussion before about what the penalty box should be because the penalty box's purpose primarily is where the keeper can use his hands in the box, where he can carry the ball to before he throws it or kicks it. But it's primarily for where the keeper can use his hands. So why should that same penalty box be the exact parameters for where penalties like fouls and, handballs in the box occur and be directly penalties. Like, I mean, I've said before, I think they should change where you get a penalty, where you're awarded a penalty, should only be for fouls or handballs, so imagine the 6-yard box, where the sides of that are. If you did like almost a vertical from there up to where the edge of the box is, almost like make it a square, and you say, okay, fair enough, if there's a handball or same for any area on the pitch, whether there's a handball or a foul, anywhere on the pitch, only if it's in that little square is it going to be awarded a penalty. Because when you see the Kilman one and you see the Gomez handball, both of them, they're not in goal-scoring positions. Obviously, the ball could go in and be a goal-scoring situation, but on the most part, that's a low-danger situation. So to be awarded penalties for fouls and handballs in areas like that, it does seem a little bit...
That's a radical...
It is radical. But I've always thought there's no reason for the box to be both.
As big as...
Yeah,
okay.
You don't need that. You know what I mean? You see so many fouls right on the corner. I mean, you think back to Liverpool against Spurs Champions League final 2018, 19? No, 19. Yeah. The handball by... who was it?
Sissoko.
It's like, that was right on the corner of the box, and you're like, good gracious. It's like, it kind of killed the game. I mean, to be honest, though, that's mostly due to the part that both teams didn't really want to play because no one wanted to lose. But for the most part, Liverpool went 1-0. They had no reason to attack there on out. So it was one of those where you go, it is a handball, clear as day. What's his hand doing, like up in the air, like trying to catch an eagle or something? But it was just a bit pointless. It was like,
eagle.
He just flicked the ball up and it's hit him in the hand, and it's like, good gracious, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And they get a pen for it, and it's like, that's so not a goal scoring opportunity. Yeah.
Feel like that's been bubbling up for a while. That little rant there, Jack. I gotta say.
It might have been.
There we are. Okay, so yeah, let us know what you think about VAR, or perhaps the radical change to the box that Jack has suggested. I think from when we discussed this before, I think I was perhaps slightly more conservative, and the football works
rational,
as a game.
Perhaps.
So, yeah, I have my sanity. Yeah. Okay, right. So we'll stick with football, but we'll leave VAR for now because I feel like we could talk about that for tomorrow and a day. So we'll talk about after the City-Liverpool game, both Klopp and Guardiola kind of discussed injuries. And to be fair, you raised this point before this game because I think Solskjaer mentioned it.
Honestly, I must predict the future on this one, because even the next day they brought up the 5-sub rule, and it was something I just typed in, and it was like, oh my goodness, they're talking 5 subs.
Yeah, and you said, didn't you? You said Solskjaer mentioned about playing in
if you play in Europe and then you play in the early Saturday morning 12:30 kickoff, he was saying basically it puts you in a dangerous position for picking up injuries with players. And I know some people go, they're paid thousands of pounds to play, they shouldn't be whining as much. But when you think it's a person's physical health, it's like you are actually scheduling poorly for injuries. And Spurs had the exact same scenario because they played Thursday night and played Sunday morning, 12 o'clock. So it's like they both had a game on a weekday evening, they had 2 days off, and then they're playing first thing on a weekend morning. And it's like, well, you do leave yourself open to injuries in those situations.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess, because I think even if you're not considering Europe, like I think Klopp mentioned how in the last international break, obviously it would have been a player playing for their international side. I don't know who it was, but he said they were playing Peru on the Wednesday, and then they were playing the early kickoff on the Saturday. So if you think about it, you're playing, assuming you play in
and
Peru,
you've got to travel.
Exactly.
So Spurs be playing everywhere in Russia. United played in Turkey. That's a long travel.
Well, you think if you're playing in Peru on a Wednesday evening, you're probably travelling back all day Thursday. You've got one day, and then the following morning you're playing another competitive game.
Yeah.
And I guess there's, like you said, how like some people would say, oh, well, that's part of the game. But I guess there's an element of
it doesn't have to be.
It's
in a
normal
international
work
break
situation.
now. Why aren't they just playing them on the Monday? There's no reason to cram all these games into a small time
and I
window.
guess like in another profession where there's an occupational hazard, I guess there's an extent to which that occupational hazard is like the employer will do everything they can to try and prevent the impact of that occupational hazard.
Yeah, and you could even consider other sports like cycling. They have, I think, it's either 2 or 3 rest days throughout a 3-week, Grand Tour, and it's like because it's common sense. When you go to the NFL, I think every team will play on a Sunday. Some teams will play on a Monday. That's not too bad. Monday to Sunday, that's not a big turnaround. But there's always a Thursday night football slot, and everyone hates it in the NFL because you'll be playing Sunday, then you'll play Thursday, but then of course it's like a 10-day window to your next game. But still, that's a 4-day break, and you can argue they're only on the pitch for 30 minutes of those 60 which they play. But when you consider football, which mostly just basically a marathon every time, you look at some of the stats people are running each game, and it's insane. So it's like these guys are going to pick up, non-impact injuries. That's another one. It's like the NFL's huge for impact injuries, particularly concussions or people just diving at people's ankles because they know that will, wound them for another game. But football's not a contact sport. I know it seems strange because you can shoulder barge and all that, but it's not a contact sport.
Yeah, not to the extent of like rugby or NFL, is it?
But still, you get players getting injured all the time, and I think this is. What's weird is when you consider there were barely any injuries in Project Restart, but they were given 5 subs. But then when you come to now, it's like, okay, we're not going to give the 5 subs because apparently it's, giving an advantage to the big teams. It's like, but it doesn't make any difference. It's like they're still going to get the injuries. It doesn't. Yeah, they're getting all the injuries now, and they've got 3 subs, so perhaps they do need to go back.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one because, like, again, like I said, I'm a Liverpool fan. There's an element to which, like I look back at last season, and apart from Alisson at the start of the season, who was out for a good few weeks, I genuinely can't remember it, and Henderson towards the end. I genuinely can't remember an extended length of time where we were missing players due muscle injuries. Like, so far Liverpool, and again, I'm speaking from a Liverpool perspective because I am a Liverpool fan, so I know a bit more about that. But as in, like, in the last 2 weeks alone, Liverpool have lost Trent this weekend because he pulled up with some sort of calf injury. I'm not sure the extent of it, to be honest. But it seems like muscle. And then Fabinho, again, hamstring, muscle injury. And you're kind of looking at it and going, there's got to be something that is awry there. And like you said, as in... It's quite telling how after we had the big gap and then the Premier League restarted again last season, there were nowhere near as many injuries when you had 5 substitutions.
Well, you consider United got Rashford, Shaw injured, Lindelof, Solskjaer was saying something about him and travelling, and then you consider City have been sort of tagging Aguero and Jesus back in and out, who both seem to have like a 3-month injury and then magically appear 6 weeks later. All of those big teams seem to be getting all the... I mean, you consider Spurs, like on that is it all or nothing they did? They were getting tons of injuries on that. And it's like, because no one... Even though people say, okay, maybe they should have bigger squad depth because they get all the money from Europe and all that, they shouldn't really complain about it. But...
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, actually, because I was gonna raise this perhaps as an argument. Is there an extent to which you could probably look at Klopp and Guardiola as the 2 managers really who probably should be complaining the least?
Because of the squad depth.
Because of the squad depth.
I'd say it for Guardiola. I would not say it for Klopp because.
Oh really? Okay.
I don't think. I mean, what both of those teams do is they buy big players for big salaries. So it always looks like they're getting all these players in, but it's just because there's more recognisable names that are coming in. So they almost can rotate. Particularly Pep, he can rotate all the time. But I'd say with Klopp, he maybe he has shored up a little bit and got Jota and he always had a Riggy, but wasn't all that. But
not the most.
And he's kept hold of players that even he didn't want, like Shaqiri.
Yeah.
But. Yeah, I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah. I was just it was just sort of going on the lines of people have squad depth, but you can't be expected to have squad depth for players like Salah, Aguero. I mean, City are fortunate they have Jesus there, but I mean, then you look at like clubs like Man United, and it's like, well, they had areas they needed to address just to make a first team, and they didn't even go and sort that. So now that you see Rashford out, it's like I'm hardly going to see Cavani playing out there because he's not exactly lightning quick.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one. I guess it's Yeah, I guess there is an extent to which you could argue that it is possibly an occupational hazard, but like you said, I think it seems a bit too extreme. And I think there is a correlation between a reduction in the number of substitutes they're allowed.
Yeah.
Well,
the interesting thing is, there's an actual rule for when teams are scheduled to play, where apparently, as long as there's 2-3 days, so 2 days without a game, after a game, from there on out, it's fair game. The broadcasters can say, right, we'll have them to play there. We like the look of that game. That's why United played Everton on that early kickoff, was because BT Sport said we want that. That sounds like a good game. Yeah. And that's the same reason Spurs played in the morning, because it was deemed that game was less valuable audience-wise than the Arsenal Villa game, which was going to be later on in the day.
Yeah.
Which is obviously going to attract a higher audience because it's like 5:30 or whatever. It's a good kickoff time. Yeah.
And I mean, I guess there's almost like you've got a two-pronged argument here of news, and you've got the kind of whole, just not even, accounting for European, as in clubs that are competing in Europe, just the Premier League in general. You've got the 5-sub rule, and then accommodating for teams who are playing in Europe as well. I mean, I think, to be honest with you, I think the whole accommodating for teams that are playing in Europe, I feel like that's been an argument since forever, really. And it just doesn't seem to change, I don't think.
But is there any wonder that these clubs want to make a European Super League where they can choose their own rules and all that?
Yeah.
When the league they're in is... I mean, you can say the Premier League is the only league doing 3 subs. Every other league is currently doing a 5-sub rule. And you don't see them getting injured. You see that the Classica this week, Royce is like the most injury-prone player in that league, and he's playing. They're all playing.
Yeah, you're right. And I guess, it's similar to the whole winter break situation. For years and years and years, it was like, we will not have a winter break. We will not have a winter break.
Yeah, if anything, they stock it up. They go, we'll double down,
Yeah.
Great.
Great. Yeah, well, this is the thing. I think they did it last year, maybe the year before. They had a winter break. It's like 2 weeks in February, I think, which, it's not really the same. I'm pretty sure they have a month in most leagues, don't they? Like in Spain and Germany.
But to be fair, a lot of them have a lot worse conditions. Like, you know what I mean? They really are snowed in, but
that's true. That's fair.
You're doing it for player safety as well. And
interesting one, that. Interesting one. Yeah. Okay, I think we'll leave that there for now. Right, we'll go on to our next regular segment, if you want. Sporting Moment of the Week. Jack, go.
Mine is Primoz Roglic. He's a cyclist for Team Jumbo-Visma. If anyone watched the Tour de France, you'll know him because he was in the lead for about 15 of the 21 stages, and then just on the last stage, it just went awful. It was a time trial, so you got no help from your team anymore.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting pipped to the Tour de France by fellow Slovenian. He is Slovenian. They're both Slovenian.
Okay.
Fellow Slovenian Tadej Pogačar. He beat him. He was about 45 seconds down going into the stage, and I think he won by 45 seconds. So the whole minute 30 he beat him by, on that one stage, and he ended up not winning the Tour de France. But Vuelta a España was these last 2 or 3 weeks, and he managed to win it despite losing a couple of seconds on the final stage. He did end up winning the Tour. So good for him. Good for coming back like that.
Sorry, can you just say those names again for me?
Now, Primoz Roglic and Tadej Pogačar.
You see,
some class names.
Yeah, I was about to say, when you say stuff like that, it makes me feel so uncultured.
I know.
And I'm looking at them. I'm looking at them on the notes that we've got, and I just don't see how pronounced.
I know. It's double. There's some class names. Another Jumbo-Visma rider called Dylan Groenewegen or something like that. Yeah. But I think you can say it about 4 different ways. So it's like,
just in case our potential listeners don't know, I know absolutely nothing about cycling. If you hadn't guessed.
That's fair.
Okay, but we're all here to learn, aren't we? Eh?
Although we know Geraint Thomas. Geraint.
Yes,
we know people who call themselves Gethin, was it, or Gavin, just because no one can say Geraint. It's like, that makes sense.
Geraint, yeah, we can say it. We know. I know Geraint.
Anyway, what's your sporting moment of the week?
My sporting moment. I'm going to stick to what I know, football. It was, I don't know whether you saw it, actually.
I haven't. I've already just looked at it on the notes. I thought, I haven't seen this.
So, basically, it was Barcelona. I don't even know who they were playing. It popped up on Twitter, to be honest. And basically, the ball kind of got passed across the box, and Messi was kind of running from the left-hand side, I should say. The ball got passed across the box. I don't even know who it was. And he made a lovely run to the front post. And just at the point where you thought he was going to...
Oh, did he, ghost it?
Strike it. He just let it run through his legs. And the thing was, I'm pretty sure on the video that I saw, I couldn't even see the person running behind him. So I'm watching, from a camera that's, in a stand, and I can't see this player making the run in behind. I think it was Griezmann. Yeah, Messi, somehow, he must have eyes in the back of his head. It was ridiculously good. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend going to watch it.
Probably.
So yeah, and Griezmann just ran in free at the back post and tapped it in. Definitely recommended. Messi is just enjoying while we can, I think. So yeah, that's my sporting moment of the week.
Nice moment.
Yeah, not perhaps not as interesting a name as I'm not even going to try and say it.
No.
Okay, right. So we're gonna discuss something that maybe a little bit more topical, perhaps a bit more controversial now, I guess. Well, just something a bit different, really, isn't it? Not necessarily related directly to a game. We'll probably do this. This is going to be a weekly podcast, so we're recording now on a Monday. Hopefully, it'll be out either Monday or Tuesday. Well, tonight.
Yeah, let's get on it.
No pressure, no pressure. Hopefully, it'll be out tonight, which is the 9th of November. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, so I saw a quote last week, and it was. And I promise it's not going to be Liverpool stuff every week, but bear with me for a minute because there is a bit more of a general discussion topic here. An Alisson quote, as in Alisson Becker, Liverpool's goalkeeper, when asked about Diogo Jota, who's recently signed from Wolves, and he was asked basically how Jota was fitting in. So I'll read the quote. They said, "How's Jota fitting in?" And Alisson's response was, "Very well. As soon as he arrived after the first game, we had a little talk. He said, 'Wow, there's a lot of chances here in games, right?' I said, 'Yeah, the team works very well offensively. It creates chances.' Now, what I found interesting about that is how Jota responded with, 'There's a lot of chances,' which, I mean, I'm not putting words in his mouth, but perhaps you could argue that maybe there aren't or weren't as many chances being created at Wolves.
Yeah, to be fair, there was a rotational sub with him and Traore, wasn't
it? That is true.
And Podence, actually, for a bit.
So, here's a question that I'm going to kind of raise, is that, there are, in leagues, there are generally teams that are traditional or regular attendees to the top of the table. Now, should they consider signing perhaps... as in when Liverpool signed Jota, as in for ages we'd heard about Timo Werner coming in, as in that was meant to be Liverpool's marquee signing for the summer, and then that didn't happen, and he went to Chelsea, and then we signed Jota. Now, this is not a slight on Jota; he's clearly an excellent player, but it was a bit more of a left field choice, I guess, perhaps from a lesser known club. As in RB Leipzig, where Werner came from, they played in the Champions League. Wolves have been in European competition, but not as regularly, perhaps, as Leipzig. Do you reckon it benefits clubs to sign from those sort of situations rather than just big marquee signings?
Yeah, I mean, when you said this initially, I was like, okay, I guess some players. But initially, you listed Pogba, St. Jury's out, and Hazard perhaps to Madrid. I mean, I don't know too much about Hazard at Madrid. I don't think it's gone as well as everyone hoped. He's not really Ronaldo's replacement, which, to be fair, is a big shoe to fill.
It's no pressure.
Gareth Bale was meant to be Ronaldo's replacement when he joined, and I'd argue he's probably better. Well, he's not as one-dimensional as Hazard. He's certainly got a little bit more about him,
controversial. Controversial.
I definitely he's more physical, he's faster. I don't know if he's as skillful.
We don't have any Chelsea fans here, goodness.
Yeah, no.
Well, there
we are. He ditched him, he did, so, he knew there was bigger horizons. But anyway, when you think about it, though, lots of big players moving to big clubs doesn't work. I mean, Sebastian Veron he signed for United twice, I think. They kept sending him back to it. I think it was AC. It might have been Inter or Juve. But they sort of volleyed him back and forth between the two. And he seemed to do amazing over in Italy and then sort of sucked when he came over to United. But, lots of there's arguments both ways. I mean, in the same way, Chelsea bought Hazard from Lille, and he wasn't a big name. I mean, I remember reading my Match of the Days, because I think I was 10 when that happened, and forever they were going on about Hazard on that. So perhaps he was like a promising starlet that.
Yes,
you know, he may have had a little bit more to him. So maybe there might be players that are perhaps a little bit more unknown. I mean, you always hear the stories of the sort of unknown, unfound players coming through and they go amazing. But how many of them do you hear about them not working? I mean, that's probably bigger. Like, it's always easy to cherry pick the ones which are the big,
true.
done well.
That is a very valid point.
Thousands of players which get picked up by the big teams and then just end up really not doing that well.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Go on. You go.
I think that's a valid point. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, we were making some notes here, and we, we've kind of got some comparisons between sort of fairly similar situations.
Yeah.
And you know, like for Liverpool particularly, and I think for a lot of teams really, it's not always, you know, like you can still get a good deal in the transfer market, not necessarily like these huge money marquee signings. So you know, like for example, you've put in the notes here, you've said about how buying certain players for cheap, in inverted commas, cheap in a football sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't say 15 mil, but yeah.
Yeah.
Back pocket change, but whatever.
Yeah, as in, like you've said, Matty Cash going to Villa from Nottingham Forest.
I don't know. On that one when he went, I thought, I'll be honest, I was gutted as a Forest fan seeing that, because Forest, they got a few decent players, but he was the player. Even though he's a right back, you go, that is an absolute player. So yeah, when he that was, if anything, that was more like, you know what? How annoying is it about financial fair play? It just coops up these smaller teams.
Yeah,
they're just not allowed to spend as much money, which does seem a little bit backwards with the whole situation. But anyway, he signs. He's doing pretty well, I'd say. But you go on.
Yeah, so like, you know, you've put as a comparison, and again, we should consider there are lots of different things.
Yeah, huge factors, yeah.
Yeah, there are lots of different factors. You know, you've got form, you've got the age of the player, you've got longevity, as in, you know, it's quite easy for a player to come in a 4 or 5 games and play very, very well, as in by the end of the season, the outcome may be very different. But, you know, as in, like you've said here about Kyle Walker from Spurs to City, as in
triple the price,
yeah, as in a huge amount of money. And okay, you could possibly argue that
only one of them gave away a penalty this weekend.
I mean, but you could argue that perhaps Kyle Walker is towards the further end of his career. Maybe. How old is Matty Cash? Do we know?
I reckon he's my age, 23ish.
23. Okay, so whereas Kyle Walker's perhaps towards
26, 27.
What, Kyle Walker?
I reckon. I reckon he's as old as you think he is.
I thought he was a bit older than that. Oh, there we are. Perhaps I stand corrected then.
Matty Cash is 23.
Go on, give us. How old is Kyle?
Kyle Walker is 30. To be fair.
There we are. Yep. So
more experience. One of them's an England international. The other one wants to play for England.
And again, you could argue that Kyle Walker, obviously, he's been at City for a while now, isn't he? And it's a long-term investment. But if you just look at it on the face of stats, like you've done some solid research into this, and you've said that Cash has more interceptions, a higher tackle win percentage, twice as many clean sheets, and Cash has created more chances than Kyle Walker this season. What is Walker doing? If he's not as good defending, which you probably want from your defender, you'd want him to be, a team like City where they're playing halfway up the field, for a defence. You go, well, maybe they're creating a lot of opportunities. He's not even creating as many chances as him. So what's he doing? He's 47 mil. Well, everyone's 14 mil. Yeah, so I guess that's an argument for the cheaper player if you want. You've got another one there. I don't know whether you want to go into the second example you've put there. Thomas Souček, signed from Sparta Prague. Well, to be fair, he was on loan at West Ham last year. But he signed this year for close to 15, 14. Just permanent now, yeah? Yeah, he's permanent now. But he played pretty much the same amount of minutes as Tanguy and Ndombele for Spurs last year from Lyon. But that was 54 mil. And he had higher tackle win percentage, Souček only got dispossessed once in 1,041 minutes. That's mental, isn't it? Whilst
Ndombele played 1,007, which is less, but he got dispossessed 24 times. And you could argue they play the exact same role. I mean, perhaps you could even say Ndombele is a little bit more fifth at the field, but also Souček had more goals than Ndombele. I didn't put that in our stats, but
okay.
So he's doing his job at the back, but also when you consider going forward, he's also getting more goals.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's an interesting one, isn't it? This topic, because like I think when I suggested this topic, the two names that I said were Diogo Jota, obviously as a Liverpool fan, he's playing very well at the moment.
But to be fair, he was a £40 million signing. Did you know that?
He was £40 million, but as in, if we...
Yeah, when you consider the name, he's not as big a name.
Yes, and where you consider what club he's coming from, as in, like, for example, you've got Kyle Walker there is moving from Spurs, who are, in recent times, fairly high up the table.
Would you not say that for Wolves?
Well, in the last couple of years, yes, but then before that, they were in the Championship.
Fair enough.
So, and, like, as in...
I mean, I'd argue that Wolves... I'd call Wolves one of the bigger teams now. Only since the Portuguese inflection.
Yeah, but as in, as in that's two or three seasons, isn't it? Whereas, I mean, when you think about Spurs, they've probably been there.
Do you think Wolves have less staying power at the top than Spurs?
Well, I mean, you're putting me on thin ice here, Jack boy. No, I guess what I'm saying is in, like, when you look at the financial clout of the club, as in Tottenham have been an established club in the sort of top.
Yeah, to be fair, and they've got a lovely stadium.
Yeah, as in they've been there for a good length of time. Whereas yes, Wolves have. To be fair, Wolves have done exceptionally well. They've got promoted, stayed up or not, and I think that's a lot more difficult than people realise. Just get up and stay up.
Yeah, especially when you look at some clubs and they invest poorly. Other clubs come up, they don't even invest because they're just looking to keep a hold of it for when they go back down.
Exactly.
Wolves have really gone risky. It's paid off, and they're reaping it now.
But yeah, I guess as in, sorry, going back to what I was saying as the original argument. I was saying Jota for Liverpool and Fernandes for United. As in, coming from Porto. Okay, I they are in the Champions League, but as in the Portuguese league is not.
It's not the Premier League.
It's not as... I wouldn't say it's as competitive as...
you played about two good teams. Two other proper contenders a year.
And I would say that the second half of the last season, I would say that Fernandes was probably one of the better players in the league. So far, Jota's probably been one of the most informed players in the league. And I think sometimes it's easy to get sucked into... you've got to buy big from a big club in order to get quality. Yeah. But I guess, there are arguments against that, aren't there? Like, as in, this season, you just got to look at Chelsea. They've bought in Ziyech. Yeah, they spent a crazy amount of money, but on some very good players. And you've got Ziyech, Werner and Havertz. They've scored...
Well, I don't know how they have... directly scored for the three. I didn't look that up, but as a team, Chelsea scored 20
as a collective. Okay,
and they spent 155 mil to do that. I mean, obviously they were really good high scoring last year, but when you consider that attack, Tammy Abraham's bench, Mason Mount's pretty much the only player who still attacks in that team.
Yeah,
spent 155 and you're scoring 20, and then you look at Sheffield United on the other end, and they've gone, well, we'll buy Ryan Brewster, we're partnering with David McGoldrick and Ollie McBurney, and they've only scored 4 goals, 2 of them from open play. Yeah, and both of them were David McGoldrick. So that 23 mil they spent on Ryan Brewster is, for the most part, wasted.
Absolutely savage assessment there from you.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, you gotta. I guess we got to remember again. There is context. Ryan Brewster's a fairly young player, so he could still come good. But as in,
do you reckon though? How old is he?
Oh, is
he post 20 yet?
Not 100%
he is
sure.
20. He is 20.
Yeah,
to be fake. But
so is it this
so
time?
Is Havertz. Isn't Havertz pretty young?
Yeah, but
pretty young.
I don't know their ages, mate. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, fair enough.
Testing my stats now.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. I guess we'll leave that topic there for now. Then, perhaps let us know again if there is anyone listening at this point. Who knows? This is the first one we've done.
Out, tuned off.
we could probably just not talk for the next 45 minutes and just upload it and no one would listen.
No one the wiser. The figures would go from 0 to 0, or maybe 2 if we both watch it ourselves.
Yeah, we'll watch it individually. We'll get our families to watch it. That might get us up to 20 views. Who knows?
Yeah.
Or listens, depending on where people are listening.
Yeah.
But perhaps let us know. What do you think? Do you think teams quite often get sucked into making sure that they get big money signings when there's more value out there to be had? I think there's definitely more value out there to be had. Perhaps I'm looking with rose-tinted glasses. There we are. Right, you've put a note in here to talk about Villa.
Yeah. It was kind of like, I was going to sort of suggest talking about 3 teams a week, but 2 of those teams were Chelsea and Sheffield United, which I feel have just been covered. So,
okay.
Well, I wanted to do a little bit of a dip into Villa, only because, well, they're banging form.
Well, it's a bit of a bittersweet topic for me, because I feel like this form really showed itself when they smashed 7.
Hammered. Well, you consider they beat last year's Premier League and FA Cup winners by an aggregate scoreline of 10-2 after beating Arsenal on the weekend. They're 6th. If they win their game in hand, they go top. 3rd most goals this season, despite playing a game less than most teams. Tied for the most clean sheets, despite playing a game less. And their signings have been awesome. Ross Barkley was a wonderstroke. I mean, he was always good for Everton. And it's like, well, Chelsea bought him and basically did what they do with all of their players. They just put them on loan.
Do you have an agenda against Chelsea?
It's just pointless. It's just pointless buying. I mean, they were a bit savvy in a sense about 4 years ago when they decided to buy every young centre back going in Andres Christensen and then Zuma. They were just buying everyone they could get their hands on. It's like, you don't need any more centre backs, but they just chuck them on loan, which is just goes stale. It does. It's wrong.
Yeah. I mean. And it's interesting what you've put there, is you've put signings, Barkley, Watkins, Cash, but I think the key one for me is the fact that they kept hold of Jack Grealish.
Yeah, absolutely. Man United wanted him, and then they've basically held him and said 5-year contract. Sign up when you're not playing.
And I mean, look, we're both Welsh. Follow English football. Definitely, I wouldn't say I don't support England as a football team.
No.
But I don't understand how I don't think he started in the last international break, did he, Jack Grealish? I think he made a couple of appearances.
Played 1, didn't he? And that was only because somebody else got kicked out.
But I'm sure I remember you saying something along the lines of he came on with about half an hour left, right?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure you said in that half an hour he created more chances than the whole of the midfield
that
combined.
Might be one of those Opta stats.
Yeah, but that's
he's crazy good. He's crazy good. When you put him with good players, he's really good. And when you sign all the good players that the Championship has, you're going to be good.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess what is refreshing as well, I mean, I don't know how much of this has an impact, but it's quite refreshing to see a player like Jack Grealish not jumping ship early. Because I remember hearing about Jack Grealish for the first time when Aston Villa were in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Before they got relegated. Yeah, so it was in. And I remember at the time because I remember people saying, "Oh, is he going to play for England?" Or he's got family members from. I can't remember whether it was Northern Ireland now or Republic of Ireland. I'm not 100% sure, but he had family members who weren't born in England, and there was a whole debate about that. And I remember then United were linked with him, and And do you know what? Interesting, actually. Going off, this is a little bit of a tangent. I remember it was the 2014 World Cup, and at the time, bearing in mind now, so that's 6 years ago. So Jack Grealish would have been proper young at that point. And you said, I'm pretty sure you were just doing it to wind me up, but you said, Jack Grealish should go ahead of Lallana. Bear in mind, at this point,
Lallana, I did remember that.
Lallana had just
had wrong?
Well, I mean, you were 6 years premature, but
he's 25. He's 25 now.
Yeah, so he would have been 19 14. At that point.
No, 19. Well, got that wrong.
Yeah, so as in... Yeah, anyway, going off from that. But yeah, I think that's, keeping hold of Jack Grealish.
And bearing in mind, they've played some serious teams so far, but their next 7 games, Brighton, West Ham, Newcastle, Wolves, Burnley, West Brom, Palace, only one of those teams you'd say might finish above them this year, and that's Wolves. So easily, you're coming out at the end of that 7-game window, and you're still in the top 4.
Yeah, and I mean, who have they played? Obviously, they've played Liverpool and Arsenal. Who else have they played? Yeah, I can't forget they played Liverpool and give me nightmares.
I'll check now. Villa, they have played. They've they've played Man United. Oh no, that was a pre-season. That was the last game before. They beat Sheffield United 1-0. That's a hard team to break down. They beat Fulham easy. Lost to Stoke in the EFL, but I don't think they'd probably try. And then they beat Liverpool 7-2. Beat Leicester 1-0. That's a good. Beat
Villa. Good result, that, yeah.
What's this? Oh no. Ooh. Lost to Leeds 3-0. That was bad. Then lost to Southampton 4-3. So they went off a bit of a bit of a bonfire there. But then they come back and beat Arsenal 3-0. It's like, what more do you want?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't ask so much more from that, really, can you? And as in, like you said, I think so that's 7 games. You'd expect 3 points. I'd say the difficult ones there would probably be West Ham because they've been pretty good.
Yeah.
Although they've kind of tailed off a bit.
Brighton's one of those bogey teams where Graham Potter, you do not know what he's going to come out with each week. Some weeks he's playing a 4-2-3-1, the next he's playing 4-4-1-1. It's like then he's playing 5 at the back, then he's playing 3 at the back. It's like, so you really don't know what Brighton's going to come out, because sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're really not a great tier. West Ham, as you said, good, but since Antonio's been injured, it's not as promising. Yeah. Aaron Cresswell's not good though in defence for them.
Yeah.
Newcastle, again, you don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes, I think it depends where you play them, because Newcastle are great at home. But it depends how Callum Wilson's doing, because he's might have picked up a knock now. Wolves, hard team. You're not really looking for any points off of them.
No.
Unless you're just looking for like a 1-1 or whatever. But Burnley, not doing well, but you never know. They've got good defence. They could have picked it up. West Brom, easy 3. And then Palace. Palace, again, another team that could really struggle to break down. So a lot of defensive teams there that really could cause them problems on the attacking end. But that defence is awesome. Like, consider they're tied for most clean sheets with a game less. Is very impressive.
Yeah, so in summary, well done Villa. I mean, not too well done, because I'm still not happy that you absolutely thumped us. Honestly, I can't remember another result like that as a Liverpool fan, but there we are. Right, so this is where we would have done, or I say would have done, we should have done the sporting shock of the week, but me being a dope, I did it at the start.
So move on.
So we'll move on from football now. We're going to talk a little bit about F1 now. Obviously, we've had a bit of a break in the F1 this weekend. Well, we've had a week break now, haven't we? So I think they're in Turkey. Is it? It's this coming weekend, isn't it?
Yeah. I saw some video on Twitter of someone driving past the Renault lorry on the way to it, and they were just going crazy. Yeah.
So, I guess what we'll do, we're going to do a bit of a review of the tracks, right? Because I think, it's been
There's loads of tracks this year, which some have been in there before, some haven't. And more of like, which tracks would you like to keep, which ones would you like to get rid of from, what would have been the calendar?
So, just to give a bit of context, how long have you been following Formula 1?
This season, and this season only.
This season, love it. Hey, there's no shame in that. Like
to be fair, though, I'm one of those people that when I pick up a sport, I just ingest all of it.
You delve.
Yeah, you know what I mean? When you just go way back into the past and pick up every little thing, just so if you were to have a conversation with someone, you get away with it. Like, I had a conversation at work when I was at the police, and I was just on reception, and a guy, we were chatting NFL, and he was talking about Walter Payton. Yeah. Now, Walter Payton is a running back from, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I can't remember what. I just remembered his nickname was the Refrigerator. Oh, no, he was the cuteness. The sweetness. He was the sweetness. And I said, the sweetness. And he went, yeah. So instantly, it looked like I knew loads of stuff. Same for somebody else who was the Refrigerator. I can't remember who that was.
Yeah.
But, I'm one of those guys who just loves to look back and
get all the details.
Everything, so I can do a proper convo.
Well, that's cool. So you've got a bit of a different... in a weird way, because obviously you have a knowledge of what tracks and stuff that happen, because like you said, you've researched into it. But as in,
to be fair, the tracks which were meant to be on this season, I know like back of my hand, because we played the Formula 1 game on the PlayStation at least twice a week.
Yeah,
and we've done every track about 15 times.
But what I mean is, like, for you viewing, it's almost like it must be quite different from. Because I guess in my head, I've just like default compared these new tracks to perhaps some of the. Anyway, we'll so what COVID tracks? We've had the different tracks this year because of coronavirus, haven't we? So I'll just the new ones. I say new as in they're
some
not
of them are classics.
Yeah, some of them exactly. Some of them are classics. So we've had Mugello, we've had the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, We've had Portimao, which is Portuguese Grand Prix.
Yeah,
We've
I don't know
had
that one, but yeah.
we've had Imola, which has been the Italian Grand Prix and San Marino Grand Prix in the past. We've got Istanbul coming up this weekend, and then we've got
Out to Bahrain.
Out to Bahrain, which is slightly different
That's
circuit.
like a square, yeah.
Yeah. And obviously we had the Austrian Grand Prix twice, didn't we? Or I think it was called Styrian.
Yeah, that's right.
And we had the
Silverstone, and then
was it?
Which was 50th anniversary or
70th,
yeah.
70th anniversary. So same track but just different name. And then so we can compare that to what other tracks have we had? I'm just sifting through these now. We've had Hungary, haven't we?
Yes.
We've had Monza.
We've had Monza.
We have had.
I think for the most part. I should have put. We've had Spa. We've had the Spanish. We've had Sochi. We've had Silverstone, as you said, and Hungary. Oh, you know what? I think we've had all of the first lot. Oh no, we haven't, because we haven't had Australian or
We
Chinese.
haven't had Australia.
No.
Okay,
But apart
so
from that, the rest of them were all already on.
So
we will have Abu Dhabi and Bahrain.
Yes, yeah, we will do. So yeah, it's gonna. What have you made of? Well, we'll talk about the new circuits first.
Yeah. Like, to be fair, as a very relative newbie to the world of Formula One, I did, when I was divulging, I did learn about, is it Herman Tilke? Is that his name?
Yeah.
I learned about him, and I learned about how pretty much all of his tracks are the same. I mean, his tracks are pretty much China, Sochi, that was definitely one of his. Bahrain, I think, Abu Dhabi, of course.
I'm pretty sure Azerbaijan as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Singapore.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised if Canada was, but I can't 100% that.
I'm pretty sure
USA
as
was,
well.
I think.
Yeah.
So you see, he's got a lot of them on there, but they are very samey, and you can very much get bored of them. So I'm not surprised people do like the idea of these new circuits sticking around for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a bit of a... Yeah, I can't decide whether I like them because it's novel or because I like the circuits. I mean...
And you got to think, have you actually enjoyed the racing? I mean, like, was it Mugello where they have the straight where they had that massive crash?
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, that was a really entertaining Grand Prix. But, as well, it was like, yeah, okay, it was crazy. That first 20 minutes was absolutely hectic. There were cars flying off the track left, right and centre because it was super narrow. And we hadn't had a super narrow track for ages. All these tracks are really wide, bar Monaco, but everyone's used to Monaco.
Yeah.
So it was like a really nice taste of something new. But as you're going on with them, like, particularly with Portugal last week, there was no overtaking. Like, there was just nowhere to do it. It was like,
It was Imola last week.
Was it Imola? Oh, Imola then.
Yeah, yeah.
There was nowhere to overtake. I mean, apart from Kvyat, I think it was just Verstappen to overtake Bottas, who ends up, just crashing out anyway. It was like there was no overtaking. It was all about the pit stops, and it did get a little bit mundane. It was just too narrow a track.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you with the Mugellos, and I think like Mugello, watching the qualifying was immense. As in
I can imagine.
Because the cars were just like they were just throwing it around these corners, and I think like George Russell said over the radio, like he said that this is immense, as in this is really something different.
It's racing, yeah.
Yeah, but I think with Mugello, I think there were two problems. I think the cars were just too wide for that circuit, and I think there was it's kind of linked into the same point really. But because of that, then the only real overtaking point was at the end of the straight, at the end of the DRS zone, which meant that overtaking was pretty boring, really. As in, it was literally just like draft car behind.
You know what
pull
was
out
good
slipstream,
though?
drive past.
What was
Go
good?
on.
Was it Portugal where they had the hairpin bend, like right after the straight? It wasn't a very long straight. It was like a hairpin instantly.
Yeah.
It was there, or was it Nürburgring? Or I can't remember which one it was.
It was the Grand Prix circuit.
Yeah.
Nürburgring, yeah.
Was that his Nürburgring? Yeah. That was epic. What an absolutely epic first win, because I mean, what Tilke does with loads of his tracks, he has a really wide entry, and then he always just narrow out, and then it's really boring because nothing happens.
Yeah.
But when you consider that track, it was like it's narrow going in, and then it just opens up really wide, and there was about 15 different best lines you could have taken through there. Like, if you were to take the best line, you completely compromise yourself with people who want to do like an undercut on you and pretty much just block you off the track.
Yeah.
But if you don't, then the other one does do that right line, then they got way more grip than you instantly off the line. It was like, it just brought so many cool different aspects. And
yeah. And I think for me, the thing that's been so noticeable with having some of the what am I trying to say? Is the different
non-Tilke tracks.
Yeah, we'll call them that. Non-Tilke traditional circuits, we'll call them. There's a lot of the fancy word that they use on the TV coverage is undulations. But isn't just the way the tracks kind of dip and flow and things like that. It's interesting to see how the cars navigate, because I think they were saying that, weren't they? As in, like particularly again, like the Grand Prix circuit in Nürburgring. I just thinking. I called it Hockenheim earlier, didn't I? Did I call it Hockenheim?
I didn't hear you say that, but you may.
I didn't. If I did, I didn't mean to. I mean the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. There's a lot, as in, I think like we saw Vettel go off there once, and he tried to pull out, and because of the kind of dip in the road, it just unsettles the balance of the car. So it makes for an interesting test.
That is fun. Like, I think what everybody likes about Brazil and the classic tracks is like that is a downhill and uphill. And you know what I mean? There's lots of different elevation changes, but you don't tend to get that with all these newer circuits. No. So all of these, old, COVID tracks or whatever, they got all sorts being thrown in terms of like elevation, downhill. Just loads going on in it.
Yeah, so I think if you were to say to me, so we've discussed Mugello, I would say Mugello was interesting, but I don't think I'd want it back next year.
No, unless you're going to see the same carnage on those first 3 turns. to be honest, though, you are guaranteed that, though, aren't you? Every time there's a safety car or just the start of the race, you are going to get that sort of start, because you've got 20 cars piling into already a narrowing straight, and then into a section which is just nuts, where it's like left, right, really quickly, and people are just spinning off all over the place. I think Vettel was facing the wrong way at one point, or was it Verstappen? One of them. It was Verstappen who crashed out onto the gravel. Vettel facing the wrong way, so it was proper awesome. I'd happily have that back if you were always going to get these like just insane starts, but it was entertaining, but it didn't make for the best race. No, from that point on though, really just like, what are we watching? This is
so I'd want the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit back. I mean, obviously we've had that in the past.
I did like
kind
it
of fairly recently.
To be fair though, they don't seem to want to do Nürburgring and whatever the other German one is, Hockenheim, as you say. Yeah, I prefer the Nürburgring to that. Yes, like Hockenheim is just a series of straights and then one technical section, which is ridiculously narrow. But
well, but then that's the thing. So I don't know whether you know this or not, but as in Hockenheim has been kind of very much changed over the years. So the first sector, and I think a lot of the second sector, have been or modernised a lot, and the last sector is the traditional sector, if you will. So that might be why it's so different, really. But yeah, so I would say I'd probably want the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit back. Portimao, Portugal, thoughts?
I can't remember it, if I'm honest.
Well, the thing is,
I can remember all the original ones back of my hand, because those ones I've played loads on the PlayStation, but you can't figure out in your head what what's happening next for each turn when you're watching these COVID tracks, because it's basically just like a series of 20 blind corners that you don't know what's happening. So it makes it a little bit more interesting, but I just can't remember what happened, like what the shapes of them were.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I missed a good chunk of the Portuguese circuit because it was on the Sunday after we did the daylight saving, and I didn't check the time, so I actually missed a lot of that Grand Prix.
That had a good first 20 minutes, because I remember saying that with your brother.
Well, I remember I remember following it afterwards, and Raikkonen had an absolute steamer of a start, and he was kind of in his car like, why is everyone not moving?
Did he get to like 8th or something?
Yeah, it was something like that. He did really, really well.
Speaking of that though, Giovinazzi's the same. He just bombs it. Every single race, you can count on him. You just look down the left-hand side at everyone where they're standing, and it'll have a green arrow for number 5 next to it. He just flies past people.
Solid starter as old Giovinazzi. So should we say jury's out? What did I say?
German.
I said he's a solid starter as Giovinazzi.
Oh, I thought you said as a German. I thought.
Yes, Giovinazzi is the most German-sounding name I've ever heard. So we'll say jury's out for Portimao then, because I didn't watch it and you can't remember.
I can't remember it. I can't remember many of them. I mean, I can imagine out of Bahrain. I mean, I do know we had Imola as well, but I can't remember those. But out of Bahrain,
we'll pause about out of Bahrain. We'll talk about this when Istanbul and out of Bahrain in a minute because we haven't had those yet. What were your thoughts on Imola?
Again, I could not picture the track. Even when I was watching it, I couldn't picture the track. It just had so much going on. I was just like, oh, you know what? No, I do remember is the final two turns being left-handers, and they were beyond narrow. They were saying, should we increase the track limits? Because it was like, sure, you can do them, and you can do them on the track, but no one's really getting any grip out of this. So it means if you do go off, there were so many penalties in that race. I think 2 different people had picked up a 3-second penalty for track limits.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I was a huge fan of Imola. Oh, okay. I thought it was, as in. Yeah. I'm not saying you're wrong. This is obviously just my opinion. As in, I really liked it. Again, I think there's something about the traditional circuits. I don't know what it is, but they just seem to flow so well. Yeah.
To be fair, I don't dislike any of these.
Yeah.
I definitely dislike some of the classic tracks more than these.
Yeah. I'd agree with that statement actually. But yeah, I was a big fan of Imola. I would quite happily see Imola return. This may be a little bit controversial. I would rather see Imola on the normal calendar than Monza.
To be fair though, Monza, it's a classic track and it's the circuit of speed. You know what I mean? It is just, if you haven't got a good engine, you will suffer there. So it's completely different. Like when you've got tracks like sort of Monaco, but not really. More so, I'm trying to think of some of the ones which are more turny in a sense. Ones where you need to have good downforce packages. Monza is the complete. Is that antithesis? Is that the correct word?
Yeah,
it is just bonnet. It's like that's what we want.
Yeah, I guess it does add a bit of variety, but I guess my question would be this: so we criticised Mugello saying that it wasn't, as in we said it was entertaining because of all of the things smashing into each other and car parts flying everywhere, but it didn't lead to good racing.
Yeah.
And I would potentially argue you could say the same about Monza, as in.
Do you reckon? Well, yeah, to be fair, it's not good racing because you only overtake on a straight.
It's a spectacle because there's an element of like it's like you said, these are some of the fastest motor vehicles in the world, in one of the most prestigious motorsports in the world, just absolutely pinning their ears back and just going full speed down straights.
Yeah.
But I have a question mark, so maybe a little bit controversial, but that would be my thinking.
Okay. Well, should we ping through them, say which ones we like, dislike?
Well, should we talk about Istanbul and out of Bahrain first, just quickly?
I don't know anything about Istanbul, so you go.
I'll be honest with you, I can't really remember Istanbul either.
Cracking.
So we'll talk about them. We won't really. We'll see what happens this weekend. Perhaps we'll talk about that next week. We'll talk about it in more
detail.
Out
of Bahrain, I haven't seen, but I've seen the shape of the circuit, and I mean, if you're not having Monza, you can't have Bahrain because, I mean, Monza at least it has 3 turns. Bahrain's got 4, but they're all right-handers. It's like this isn't even a track. It's like scale electrics. It's like you just got to loop.
I got to be honest. I can't say I am excited for Out of Bahrain.
Out of Bahrain only exists because they're getting paid a ton, absolute ton, to put it there. It's the only reason Saudi Arabia have a Grand Prix for next year.
Oh, controversial!
It's true.
Controversial.
All of the desert ones really aren't that great. I mean, I'm not really a fan of Abu Dhabi. I think that one's a really tedious one where you're like, okay,
do you not like Bahrain normal?
I find that. Oh, Bahrain normal?
As in Bahrain inner, we'll call it.
To be fair, though, three quarters of that are just straight lines. And then you've got one sort of like, 2-turn snake sort of looking thing. And then to be fair, the beginning, maybe not even the beginning, Sector 2 of Bahrain inner it's okay, but really it's just a sequence of really sharp bends which are just going to cause a crash, but not a good sort of crash. Like, I know it's bad to say good and bad crashes because nobody wants to see anyone die, but you want to see places where there's going to be cars bumping or potentially for spins and stuff because it creates variance in the race, which makes it unpredictable. I think that's why people like most sports, is because they're unpredictable.
But I
don't really like I don't like inner Bahrain that much. Out of Bahrain, I think it's going to be a dog. I'm not a fan of Abu Dhabi. I just think you've got too many straights to bother having a bendy section, because that bendy section is not even that good. There's no challenges in it. Really, that is everything bad about Herman Tilke tracks put into one track. There really isn't a lot going on. Like, you even consider the really long straight, the first really long straight, after you've got a sort of mediocre longish straight where you can rev it really high, but because it's just a hairpin and go, it's just boring. It's like no one's getting any better drive out of it because everyone's got to come to a standstill to do it.
Yeah.
It's the same for Canada. It's like you've got loads of straights, and then you've got sort of a bend, and then you've got like pretty much 2 tail end pin ends, whatever, that do like a 1 mile per hour whilst you go around it, and then you bang on the rev again. It's like, you've got better entry, you're going to win that race.
Yeah. So we'll go through the original tracks one by one now. But in summary, from the new tracks we've had, Mugello, we don't want back. Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, yes,
I like
please.
that. Yeah, I did like that.
Portuguese circuit, jury's out.
Mm-hmm.
What are we saying about Imola? I would say yes. What would you say? I'm just going to.
I'm going to say no. When you look at the quality of that race, a track
disappointing.
leads itself to being a good track. But the quality of the racing, there was no racing because no one.
Can I make a defensive statement though?
Go on.
In defence of Imola, had Hamilton not had that very fortunate virtual safety car when he pitted,
he was going to overtake him anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, but the gap when he came out in the end was, I think it was about 5 seconds compared to what would have been about 1.
Was there a safety car in that?
So when Hamilton pitted...
it was a virtual when he pitted, wasn't it? That's why he gained 10 seconds. But
yes,
there was another safety car.
There was another safety car.
And he wasn't even challenged. After that.
I can't remember exactly what happened. Anyway, okay, we'll say jury's out for Imola then, because we've got opposing viewpoints, and Istanbul and Outer Bahrain.
Outer Bahrain's going to be a dog.
Istanbul, unknown, because we don't really know. Outer Bahrain, I can't say I'm looking forward to. We'll see, though. We'll see. Who knows? It might shock.
Who knows, yeah.
So, actually, that's quite interesting, because I thought we were probably going to have
I thought we were going to prefer them, but thinking about it, they're okay. I 100%, I'd do it again. All of them again, because it's something different to these pretty much carbon copies of each other with small variations.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting. Right, so we'll quickly fly through perhaps some of the normal circuits then, or what's normally on the calendar.
Yeah.
Australia.
I like that. I think that may be the best track on the calendar for just outright racing. There is so many opportunities to overtake, but through good driving, not just I've got a better engine or anything like that. Like even when you consider the straight, the turn going onto that straight, it's one of those where you have to get the right line. So it starts off good. If you have a bad line, you're going to get overtaken, or you're not going to be able to keep up. So it just brings out a lot of things where you have to get it right. If you're a good driver, you will win that race. It's not just about the car.
Yeah. That's fair enough. I'm a fan of Australia. I don't think I'd say I like it quite as much as you do. I'll be honest. I think it's a good season opener though. As in I feel like that's one of the ones where I kind of look at the calendar.
You can't be disappointed with it.
Sorry,
I don't think you can be disappointed with it.
No, and when I look at the traditional calendar, that's one of the ones where I think I feel like we've missed out this season.
Yeah.
Okay. Austria. I'll be honest with you, I'm a huge fan of Austria. Love Austria. Very simple circuit.
And that's why I don't like it. I think that suffers for the same reason Outer Bahrain will suffer.
Oh, really?
To a main part. To be fair, there's one line. There's one line all the way round.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of the lines will swerve from the left to the right, back to the left-hand side of the track. So it means even though, sure, you can try and get better grip, you will instantly get pushed off the track by the person ahead of you. The same way that Albon did against Hamilton. Hamilton just went, I'm going to move to the left because that's the right side to go. And then I'm going to go back to the right because that's the driving line and he's ahead. And it's like, well, sure, okay, that's great. But it means you can't actually overtake somebody because as soon as you get halfway or close to halfway, they'll push you off because that's where the driving line takes them.
Okay. Austria. Well, I've already said I'm a big fan of Austria. I think it's I don't know. I just love the simplicity of the circuit. I think there's.
To be fair, to drive it on the game on Formula One, great track. It's a really fun track.
I think
there's nothing complicated in it.
There's some pretty interesting places to overtake. I think.
Do you reckon?
Well,
I think.
Yeah, I guess maybe
if
not.
If you don't overtake on a straight, I mean,
Well-
let's go turn by turn.
Right, so
First turn, you can, but you'll kill somebody if you try to overtake there because it's too sharp a turn to overtake.
Yeah,
unless
I
you
mean-
break track limits, you're not
I think
overtaking.
you've got the first you've got the first corner. You've got that kind of semi-straight.
Yeah, they call it a turn 2 in the middle of that. Did you know
Yeah.
that? That's
Yeah,
not a
I
turn
know.
2. So we'll go turn 3.
I
That's a
think,
sharp one. That's probably one of the few good areas to overtake, especially because they put a DRS zone straight
I think
after it.
you could probably overtake there. I think you could probably overtake into the
Like,
next
yeah.
the kind of sweeping
That's another
right-hander.
one where you can get it so wrong and two people are ending up in the sand and it's one guy's fault, not the other. Then you swing around there and this is straight, then it's the two lefts consecutively.
Yeah.
Now I don't think you can overtake there because they are such fast turns that they cut each other off.
Perhaps I'm looking at this in the same way that I look at Mugello's, and it lends itself to an interesting qualifying lap and an interesting qualifying.
Oh, yeah. The Austrian Grand Prix qualifying lap, that's fun. That's a good, quick, everyone's on the edge because you could spin out and crash. You could also do an absolutely banger.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. All right, then.
What about China?
I don't know. I feel like China's a bit of a
I don't know
beige.
I don't know if you can hear. It is raining.
Yeah, I can hear raining through the
Okay.
microphone.
That is rain. Anyway, carry on, China.
Yeah, I feel like it's a bit beige. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't lend itself to either, does it? Bendy or straights.
I think, I'll be honest with you, and I think this is some of the things I'd level at some of the other circuits. The runoffs are so huge.
Yeah.
And this is nothing to do with the route itself or the circuit itself, but I think the runoffs are so huge, I feel like it has a bit of a negative impact on how fast they're actually going. Because it's almost like it feels like there's no risk.
But
There is
also at the
risk,
same
obviously,
time,
but-
the track's really wide.
Yeah,
Unnecessarily wide. Like, especially that first turn, which is like a really... To be fair, it is actually quite good that one's so wide, because it means you can have about 3 or 4 cars going side to side through it. But yeah, what I don't like about it is the fact that it's pretty much Monaco for the first half, and then it goes, you know what, let's just have a 4-mile straight. It's like, what on earth is that 4-mile straight there for? I know it's not 4 mile, but it's just unnecessarily long. It's like, so basically, you're telling everybody, just go on to the lowest downforce you can, or, I don't know if it's low or high, I'm not sure technical terms. Yeah, low. Go on the lowest one you can, because you want to be bombing it down that straight, because nobody can, you can just cut people off for the rest of it and just go, alright, I'm quicker than you for the rest of it.
Yeah. Alright, we'll move on to France then. French Grand Prix, I gotta say, I'm really not a fan of that circuit.
It's not a good circuit to watch.
I feel like that is one of those
I
ones...
like it. I love it on the game. I'm really good at it on the game, because it just, each turn goes into the next, it's really fast, but man, that's a boring. I think that one is pretty similar to Canada in the sense that it's just a couple of really long straights and then a needless.
I mean, I think
section.
it's the sort of final sector is pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's probably. But then again, it's I keep thinking about these from the perspective of playing and driving it on the game, but to watch, that's probably not a bad final section. It's got a few different lines all the way through.
Yeah. All right then, Monza.
I think it deserves to be on there because it's a circuit of speed. You need at least one circuit which is straight lines, and I think that's the circuit that deserves to be on there, just purely for its legacy.
Fair enough. Can't argue with that. I mean, it doesn't necessarily lend itself to the most interesting races, but as in, I think for that one, for me, if you appreciate the kind of science of a sport like Formula 1, you can appreciate Monza because it's almost like you can see, like things like drag and, they always what do they call it now? The toe. Like they always talk about the toe on Monza, don't they? Like getting the toe in qualifying.
That's 2 years ago, wasn't it? Where they
Where
basically everyone tried to go out at the same time, but no one had timed it right. So I think only 3 cars started the final lap.
Yeah, exactly. So in that sense, I think if you can appreciate the science and all that sort of stuff behind Formula 1, you can rate Monza. I think purely from a racing perspective, jury's out for me.
Yeah.
Hungary. Huge fan of Hungary. Sorry, go on.
That's Monaco without the sides, basically. It's such a bendy... I like it. I think there's just so many good opportunities to overtake.
Hungary,
It's fast, it's good. It's good.
I'm a huge fan of Hungary. I think it's a cracking circuit.
Definitely one of the better Grand Prix we've had this year as well.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, The problem with a lot of the Grand Prix this year, I found, this is kind of diverging a little bit.
You can't compete with Mercedes. That's one of the big problems.
Yeah, basically, that's all I was going to say.
Yeah, it's a
close.
foregone conclusion before the race
close,
starts.
and then Mercedes drive off.
Yeah.
Let's see. Silverstone.
I like it. I
like Silverstone.
I think it's got a lot to offer. It's nothing. It's not one or the other. It is got a lot of technical, but it's also got a nice couple of mini straights almost. Not like an insane one like China.
Yeah.
Basically, if China had split up that enormous straight and chunked it out throughout that track, that would be a good track.
Yeah, I agree. I like Silverstone. I think again, it kind of demonstrates the kind of technical aspect of. Is in if you appreciate the kind of the impact of downforce, like we saw with the tyres this year, didn't we? How
it
shows. Yeah, these cars are very much on the limit. I think we sometimes forget that. What do you think of Spain?
I like Spain. It's rubbish to play on that game, so I don't know what your opinion will be, because I know you don't really like it for that. But I think as a track, solid. Really got a lot. It's not really got. Well, it has got a straight, and it's got a straight which comes on a really slow bend, so it means you can get way quicker really fast. But there's a couple of driving lines, but I think it's got a lot of good technical areas in it.
Yeah. I like Spain. I'll be honest with you. I think it's I think there's a reason why they use it as one of the the testing tracks. I think it's like a I don't know. It's just like a good benchmark for teams, I think.
Yeah, it's got everything.
So perhaps we'll go through these slightly quicker then, just because some of them are a bit more beige as we go along. Spa, I think that's a cracking circuit.
Yeah, can't complain.
A Rouge.
That's amazing.
Enough. A Rouge is enough.
A Rouge alone, it makes it a good track. But I think what's good about it, I mean, I don't know why more tracks don't do this. It's like a 1 minute 50 lap time because it's so long. And it's like, why don't more tracks just say, yeah, we're going to have an absolutely enormous track? Because it means you can't, you know what I mean? When you do Monza, it's like a 1 minute 8. That's probably about the lap time. So it's like straight, turn, straight, finished. And it's like, but that, it's like, there's everything on it. It's just absolutely nuts.
Yeah. I agree. Sochi, yes or no? Straight answer.
I like it.
I'm not a fan of Sochi.
I think it's got good opportunities to overtake. I mean, it can be a little bit cut and dry in the sense that it's sharp turn straight. But I think they aren't quite as sharp as some of the other ones. So I think it does still at least lend the people to slightly overtake.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Bahrain we've already discussed, really, and we kind of discussed it with out of Bahrain, and we discussed it. Well, I guess we can carry on discussing it. So I like Bahrain in it. I think there was a race in 2014 between, I think it was Hamilton. Was it 2014? I can't remember now. It was Hamilton and Rosberg. And it was arguably one of the best races I've seen. Just purely those two, it was outstanding. I would recommend watching that if you can find it. What are your thoughts on Bahrain in it?
Don't like it. I think I said it. Yeah, don't like it. It doesn't offer anything really.
Okay. Abu Dhabi.
No, I don't like that either.
Fair enough.
I don't like. Basically, the tracks I don't like are the ones which have sharp bends, which mean that before a long straight. Because it means there's no driving down that straight. Maybe if the DRS is completely overpowered, then sure, people can overtake, but that's not. You don't want to see people overtaking because of DRS. You want them to overtake because they've got a better drive and they've just whooped someone with better tyres.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I quite like Abu Dhabi. I don't know whether I'm perhaps looking at it through rose-tinted glasses.
I just think I just don't like. It's got all the bad elements of Tilke tracks, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, that's a fair point, and I think again, there's just so many huge runoff areas.
Yeah.
It reduces the perception of risk.
Yeah.
As in, like, there are lots of circuits where not even necessarily the track circuits, but like, let's think of an example out of these. Well, Hungary, for example, as in, okay, there are some areas of Hungary where the runoffs are huge, but a lot of Hungary, the runoffs aren't that big. And it just increases the sense of speed and the risk that they're taking. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, but that's a fair point with Abu Dhabi. Right, I'm going to be controversial here now. Monaco. I don't like Monaco.
Yeah.
I think it's a spectacle, don't get me wrong, and I think it does still have a place on the calendar, just for me personally. But again, we criticised Mugello because we argued that there's not much racing. I can't remember the last time in Monaco where
Saw an overtake.
well, yeah, maybe not quite that extreme, but I can't remember the last time where somebody who didn't qualify on pole didn't finish first unless it was something to do with like a failure or something like that.
Yeah.
And if it has happened, I can't remember what's happened in the past couple of years. If it has happened, it's very rare. But then I think that is as much of a criticism of the regulations currently. I think the cars are just too big.
Yeah.
It leads to fast. It leads to fast track times because they have so much aero and downforce.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of racing, they just don't suit Monaco. So I'm going to say I'm not a fan.
I'll be honest, I am not a fan of that track, but I think it should stay for the same reason Monza stays. Where Monza stays because it's a great straight line circuit, so it means. I mean, to be fair, Monaco could be a bit wider. The cars could be a bit smaller for it. But to be fair, at the same time, it means do better on qualifying. If you're not a good qualifier, then you're not gonna. You know what I mean? It's a part of the race. Part of the race weekend. If you can't do it, you can't do it. You know, you're going to suffer. But I think it stays purely because of its classicness, and because it's the pure competition of speed. Downforce. You got to have a good car. It's not all about the engine, and I think that's what Monaco is.
Okay, that's fair enough. Right, Dutch Grand Prix. Now
you may not have. I've played this on the game. I
have played it on the game once. From what I've seen on the game and from what I've seen on like videos on YouTube, I think there's an element of it. It has the potential to be good, but again, I think there's going to be struggling for overtaking. I don't know about you. What are your thoughts?
I was thinking that, but then I just went through the track in my head then, and I thought, you know what? I think this could actually be the best track on the calendar next year if it stays. Purely because I know
if we're still doing this podcast in a year time, I'm going to hold you to that.
Only because it is narrow, and it's narrow for some of the really technical sections. But those technical sections, nobody in their right mind would try to overtake on, so it doesn't need to be wider. But it does have 2 or 3 sections where you can overtake, and a very nice. I mean, I'm going to say that's probably the best 2 turns before the straight on any circuit, purely because it's wide, it's fast, but it's so punishing that it's got the gravel straight on the left and it's banked. It's got everything those last 2 turns before the straight. So literally, you're going to see cars flying everywhere. Some of them overtaking, some of them not, some of them crashing out, and it's going to be epic. I think it's just going to be an epic last 2 turns in straight.
I can tell you're excited for this Grand Prix. Okay. Like I said, I don't really know, so I'm going to abstain from commenting on that one. Yep. Right, Azerbaijan.
I like it on the game because I'm very good at it. Do I like it in real life? I can't actually say I've watched this one in real life because it wasn't on the calendar this year or last year.
I think, to be honest with you, I feel like Azerbaijan suffers the same as a lot of the Tilke tracks in that it's just.
It's got a lot of sharp bends, which don't really lend themselves to good racing.
And there just tends to be a lot of artificial DRS overtakes.
Yeah,
and don't get me wrong,
that is such a long straight.
I don't mind DRS overtakes, but I feel like a lot of the modern circuits, the only opportunity to overtake is through getting in DRS, and then just flying past.
When you consider, once you pass the castle section and you've got those like 3 sort of left turns which aren't left turns, then you've got 2 proper left turns. From there on out, you can just power on the accelerator because you've kind of got a right and a left and a right again, but the car will not get up to speed quick enough that it's going to matter being in not revving then. So they just basically that straight, as much as it's only for a certain section, it's actually straight. It starts about 3 turns earlier because no one's going quick enough that they're not going to be able to get through that section. So
if you pick the right line, isn't it?
If they pick the right line, it's so powerful. It's so overpowered. I'm just glad the DRS isn't till about 2/3 of the way of that straight.
Fair enough.
But it's a difficult one because arguably then, with my logic of you got to have some sweeping bends, I'm not going to like any street circuits, but I do think Azerbaijan it's basically it's Monaco with the sharp bends, but it's actually wide enough that you might actually overtake some people.
Okay. Singapore. There's a bit. The thing with Singapore is because that has not been on the calendar. I say a massive amount of time relative to like Australia, which has been there since the dawn of time. I think.
Yeah.
Now Singapore. I remember when Singapore came in. I think I'm right in saying it was one of the first night races.
Yeah.
Because Abu Dhabi kind of goes from night through to dusk through to night.
Yeah.
Singapore is straight up night, isn't it? It's dark. Now, for a while, I feel like it was a little bit of a gimmick in that isn't it?
We are the night race, so let's watch us. It's
visually, it was good to look at. Like all of these cars just being,
especially the Mercedes when they're in silver.
Exactly. I quite like Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
Again, though, I feel like there's the tendency similar. I feel like it's a little bit of a problem with street circuits in general, in that if you qualify on pole, you're almost guaranteed. Although saying that, I feel like we have had some quite entertaining races in Singapore. So, like we had that one a few years ago where the both the Mercedes kind of sandwich Verstappen off like into the first corner, and Hamilton, who had a
they both span out, didn't they?
Well, they crashed into each other and took each other out. Verstappen was out, and then Hamilton kind of from nowhere went. Well, I say from nowhere, as in he was just the next person.
Yeah.
After all of those people decided they were just going to end each other's races. So yeah, I like Singapore.
So I'm thinking through the track now if I like it, and I'm not sure. It is nice. It's a nice circuit. I don't think it should go, but I don't think it's the best for overtaking. I just don't think. I don't think there's just enough areas to get a better drive.
Yeah, fair enough.
But again, that's a street circuit, so.
Yeah, right. Japan, Suzuka.
I like that. I think it's an absolute baptism of fire for somebody who's not a good driver, because you cannot survive that Japanese Grand Prix without being a good driver. And you've got to know your car. It's a blessing that it's towards the end of the calendar year, because if that was week one, race one, Grand Prix one. After the grid's not finishing that, it is such a difficult track, so narrow, so punishing if you go off with all the gravel. It's really
for
good.
me, it's all about 130R as well. So
yeah,
for people who possibly don't watch Formula One, there's it's a left-hander, sweeping left-hander, and it's just flat out.
It's after a straight, before a straight as well, so it's just.
Nice. In any sort of non-Formula One car, you're probably flying off and smashing into a wall.
Absolutely.
But because of the way Formula One cars work, they just sweep around, and it's fantastic to watch. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of Japan.
Yep.
Japan, Suzuka, please stay forever. Canada's
a dog.
Beige.
Dog.
Do we need to? Let's not even talk about it. Beige.
A dog.
Mexico.
I like it. I think it's got a little bit of everything. I think it's got a lot of. To be fair, I think it's got too much straight, because you've got the back straight and the really long straight. But they've got good sections going into them, which lead to a decent opportunity to overtake.
Is Mexico a Tilke track?
Let me find out.
Because if it is, I would say it's the worst one.
Really?
I do not like Mexico.
I think it's got a lot. I do. I mean, but yeah. To be fair, it was open in 19. Oh, to be fair though, no, because they converted a stadium, didn't they, to make it? I think it's changed shape a few times.
So it's not a Tilke track then.
I'm not sure. I don't think it definitely wasn't originally.
Let's say it's not for now, because if it's been around for that long, I'd be surprised if it is.
But the thing is, they changed it.
Oh, okay.
So it could be.
Let's just say that I don't like it.
That's...
Even if it's not a Tilke one, whether it is or it isn't, I'm not a fan of Mexico.
Okay.
I feel like I've been quite harsh on the Formula One calendar here. Perhaps I need to stop being so picky. There we are. Yeah, not necessarily a fan of Mexico. Right. On the contrary to that, USA, huge fan of COTA. I would argue that it's probably one of the better modern, in inverted commas, modern circuits. Yeah,
in a sense, it's Japan, but with the stabilizers, because it's got the bendy sections aren't quite as harsh. They've got huge runoffs like France.
Yes, that is true.
And I'm trying to think of the really long bend. If it's got a sharp turn, it has.
Yeah.
It's not too sharp a turn, so I guess you can get a good bit of racing down there. It's an alright track. It's an alright track.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. I mean, I'm a fan of that first sector.
Yeah.
I think it's just, yeah, that first corner. I think the thing with that first corner is there are so many good lines that you can take.
Yeah.
Which makes it really interesting from the start. And that first sector, the quick left right-handers. Really interesting to watch. Brazil.
I think that's. I was going to say it's a really good track, but now I think about it, it's very samey all the way around in terms of there's two straights and there's a pretty cool dipped section in there, but then it's like three or four sector. Back to back of the exact same turn, and it's like, well, great, if you can master one, you can master three, can't you? You know.
I mean, I think the thing with Brazil that helps it is because of the climate of the country.
Yeah.
It often leads to quite radical changes within a race or between qualifying and race, right. Which can make for some very interesting. Well, you just have to look at Hamilton's win in 2008, as in that was, not necessarily the best racing, but as in that whole situation, is tipping it down with rain. Hamilton has to overtake. Yeah, really, I like Brazil. I wouldn't say it's one of the better ones, but yeah, I think it's definitely should hold its place on the calendar. Yeah. Right, we'll leave it there for the F1 now. Again, if there is anybody watching on YouTube or listening on
Spotify,
hopefully. Spotify. Here we go.
It's hopeful. It's not 100%.
Fingers crossed. If not, it'll definitely be on YouTube. I'll make sure all of the Instagram details and the Twitter details are put in the details of the YouTube video. So if you want to follow us on there, that'll be cool. But yeah, perhaps let us know. Are there any tracks that you do or don't like if you follow Formula One? Are there any of the new ones that you'd like to see returning? Do you completely disagree with some of our opinions? Let us know.
Yeah.
Right.
The next question was sort of mine. I thought we were chatting the other day and I just propped it up. But
so is it? What are we talking about here? Is it NFL?
Yeah. So Patrick Mahomes, if no one knows, he is the Kansas City Chiefs quarterback. He recently
if nobody knows, he is the GOAT.
Yeah, that's Tom Brady at the moment, but I think one day it will be Mahomes. But
I'm joking.
He recently signed a $500 million $500 million, that is, 10-year contract with the Chiefs. And that's in a salary capped league. That's not like the Premier League where you can give them whatever. It's a salary capped league, so that's insane. But basically, some reporters on there have said Mahomes is the closest thing the NFL has to Michael Jordan.
Okay.
Now, Michael Jordan, obviously everybody knows him. He has got a net worth of $2 billion, despite only earning $90 million during his playing time. So he's made $1.11 billion. Was that right? No, 1.91, sorry. $1 billion off of other contracts, mostly probably his Jordan shoes. So the question was, does the F1 have a closest thing to the NFL?
Yeah, I forgot about this question. So still in F1.
Is there a driver that is the Michael Jordan equivalent for the Formula One? Or has there been? That was sort of... I mean, you're probably more suited to answering the question of has there been? I mean, particularly in the drivers that there currently are that could be, I definitely chuck in someone like Charles Leclerc if Ferrari sorted out. I just... people think perhaps Hamilton, because he is absolutely one of the probably the most dominant driver of all time. But he's had the car. He's had the car. And it's beneficial. But Leclerc,
if you're talking about pure marketability, I mean, Hamilton has got his fingers in a lot of pies, and he does a lot of the...
Has he, though? I see the Monster Energy all over him, and obviously drives a Mercedes. But
he does a lot of stuff with Tommy Hilfiger, I think, like the fashion clothes.
Okay.
He's done his own music, I think. I don't know though. I don't think I'd put him in that same sort of
like for reference. Patrick Mahomes has signed huge deals with Adidas, Bose, Oakley, State Farm, which is like some huge company in America. But I'm trying to think, Hamilton, obviously I know who all of those brands were then, but I wouldn't have said he's getting a huge amount for what's their faces, Tommy Hilfiger. So I can't imagine it being that, you're almost combining marketability with how dominant a performer he is, and that's what Patrick Mahomes is. He is so dominant, but he's
Yes.
also getting huge contracts. Whilst I don't think that... Well, firstly, I don't think Hamilton alone is the reason he is so dominant, because I think he's had a very fortunate car. And I think that'll always lend itself to whoever's dominating in Formula 1. But particularly I said Leclerc's, because he's currently 5th in the driver standings this year, and that car's a dog, an absolute dog.
Yeah,
and
it's not a good car.
He's completely wiping the floor with some of the other manufacturers, firstly, who are, got cars which should be beating that Ferrari, but also he's dominating a 3-time world champion Vettel in the exact same car. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think he's on course that he could be the dominant performer, and when you're a team like Ferrari, that already is lucrative, so perhaps he could have some good contracts there.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think Leclerc has the potential to be, and he's very young.
Yeah.
I don't think I would... I feel like Formula 1 isn't quite as... I don't know, it's because there are so many different components to what happens in Formula 1. I'm not saying there aren't lots of components to success in basketball. I mean, I don't know as much about basketball, but I feel like a lot of things have to come together to... I don't know, I feel like with the basketball, it's quite easy for, like, an individual to become the face of.
Yes, I see what I mean, because there's not as many big, dominant players in it. Yeah.
Whereas
it's just LeBron and Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, whereas like for the Formula 1, I don't know. I just
Steph Curry. I mean, I'm not bashing everyone. Curry.
But yeah, with the F1, I think because it's a slightly different sport, I don't know. I just don't see it. I've never seen it in that sense. I think I don't really know. What do you think? Well, obviously I know what you think. You said Leclerc, didn't you?
Yeah. I was thinking, gosh, am I going to scramble somebody in the back of my mind now?
No, no. I guess when I say
we could all write off Kvyat. It's not going to be Kvyat.
Do you think there's an element to which Formula 1 as a sport doesn't lend itself to that sort of thing?
Yeah, I guess it's not the most no, it is hugely marketable, but because it's only 20 weekends of the year out of 52, like you consider when you consider football, there's 38, and I mean, hands down, I think it's either Messi or Ronaldo or Neymar. I wouldn't say Neymar for the dominant performances, but certainly for marketability, that are almost Michael Jordan-esque. But yeah, I probably wouldn't say Formula 1. Like, you could even say, like, Michael Schumacher was, or probably is, the most dominant of all time, even though you could say the car again. So I guess there's always that thing hanging them back, but, some players, they just dominate regardless where they are in different sports.
Yes, yeah. That's fair enough. I would agree with that. Mm-hmm. Right. Should we do our final regular segment before we wrap up?
Yes, let's do.
So, the last regular segment is the surprising stat of the week. Do you wanna kick this little segment off?
Yeah, I mean, I found a few funny stats that I like stats that really haven't got an explanation. This where's that coming from? Like the one I chose was Harry Maguire currently, despite playing one game less, has more shots in the box than Aubameyang and Lacazette, which did make me sort of chuckle a bit.
Those sort of stats, I love those sort of stats.
But there was loads of good ones in terms of... I saw Fabianski has now saved a penalty in 5 consecutive seasons. And,
wow.
Yeah, so there's always a good nugget of stat out there. So
just put it out there. If anyone else likes stats, Optajo and Squawker Football.
Class.
That's what we're saying. They're just great for football stats.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a sucker for stats in general. I'm not very good at maths, but I absolutely love stats. So mine is, if Mo Salah scores one more Premier League goal, and no, I'm gonna rephrase that. When Mo Salah scores his next Premier League goal,
when he dives next in the box.
Oh right, that's enough of that. He will equal Cristiano Ronaldo's Premier League goal tally in 67 fewer games.
He played a completely different position too. He was basically a right mid, not a forward like Salah.
Oh, you defensive United fan.
It's true.
Get in the bin. Anyway, Mo Salah's excellent, and I like that stat.
Yeah.
So that is basically going to wrap up this podcast. I think.
Episode 1, down to the wire pod. Wrap up.
Dunzo. So thanks for listening. You can catch us on YouTube and hopefully Spotify. Is that right?
Hopefully. It should be. I mean, just yeah.
If you enjoyed, perhaps give us a subscribe. Hit the subscribe button if you're on YouTube. Give us a follow. I'll put the links for the socials in the information. Oh, what's it called?
Description.
Description of the video. That's it. We're so down.
I'll do it for the Spotify as well if we get on there. But,
cool.
Whatever.
So, and out of interest, the Twitter handle is @downtothewire P1.
Someone
down
to the pod.
It's all. Yeah, we couldn't get pod.
Someone
all of those, each word with a capital letter. Yeah. And on Instagram we are. Hold the phone.
I think we got it there, didn't we?
Yes, on Instagram we are Down to the Wire Pod, all lowercase. So perhaps give us a follow.
A victory.
Big up Down to the Wire Pod.
What?
Yeah, we're a weekly pod, so we'll hopefully be with you next Monday. We'll be discussing all that's worth knowing in the world of sport.
You can listen to us whilst you run. You can listen to us while you drive.
Who knows? You can listen to us. You do. Yeah, you do. You can listen to us wherever. If you are listening, I hope you've enjoyed our ramblings.
Yeah.
And we shall see you in a week's time.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much. See you all.